In episode 2 of the Shadowlands Alpha Round Table here on Warcraft Radio, Kexman is joined by Quissy from twitch.tv/QuissyTV, ShieldWalled, co-host of the Starting Zone podcast, and Warcraft Radio's own Farseer from You Think You Do, But You Don't. In this week's Alpha build, Blizzard finally unlocked Torghast for us to test, as well as some quality of life changes to the character customization UI. Hello folks, and welcome to the second episode of the Shadowlands Alpha Roundtable discussion. My name is Kexman, and this week I am of course joined by Farseer, Quissy and Jason. Thank you for joining me here today, folks. Thank you.
Alright, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
It's the pleasure is all mine. Pleasure is all mine. Now, there was a small few things added into Alpha this week. I don't know if any of you have noticed at all. I don't know if any of you have been speaking about it. Is it Torghast? I don't know.
It's not ringing any bells for me.
No,
was it a quest?
I think it might have been a quest.
The new leveling zone? Yeah.
Well, to be fair, it kind of is. There's so many people making new 50s and leveling in it, so
yeah.
It's probably the single biggest, I'd say, feature that Blizzard have implemented that everybody has wanted to test, and obviously it's at a very, very early alpha stage now. We don't know a whole lot about what's going to happen in the future. There were a couple of small changes. Customization for, the character creation screen has changed slightly, and they've made a couple of additions to some of the classes. They've made a few changes. So first things first, I think we'll get the major question out of the way. How has Torghast worked for all of you? Have you been enjoying what you've been seeing of Torghast so far?
Yeah, I think I spent a good maybe 4 hours or so with it. Nothing insane, but I don't have time to dive into alpha like full time. And I couldn't put it down on Thursday when it came out. I was up all night just running Torghast. I'm playing Vengeance. I main tanks, and Vengeance is not my favorite, but it was the option, and I had a blast. They kind of delivered on the stuff I was hoping for from the BlizzCon announcement. The roguelite aspects. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of Slay the Spire flavor, and I think we definitely are seeing that for sure. And it's obviously really early. There's a lot of untextured geometry, and it's a little buggy. I got knocked into a wall that I got stuck in, and I had to end a run one time. But it doesn't matter because it's so much fun. I think it's the most fun I've had with WoW, like a new feature in WoW in years. And even just this early alpha test with 4 classes and limited implementation, 0 stakes, right? Like, there are no rewards. This is an alpha test. Your character's going to get deleted. You can't make a legendary. You can't do anything with a covenant. But even at that, I think it was just the most fun I've had doing like a solo gameplay thing ever in 15 plus years. I was blown away how they paid it off already, and we got a long way to go.
Wow.
It's true. It is one of, I think I've done a couple of runs with every single class bar Warlock so far. So obviously they've got Warlocks, Mages, Priests, and Demon Hunters available. Done a couple of runs with Demon Hunters, a couple of runs with Priests, a couple of runs with Mages. But Vengeance Demon Hunter, I managed to get to level 72. I managed to get to the current alpha cap, which, of course, we know there isn't going to be a cap on live. It's going to be a lot more open. And like you said, it's still very, very early. We don't know exactly how we're going to be able to get into Torghast. I think one of the big questions that's really been asked at this point in time is, with the sort of how it is on Alpha, where you can go in, you can do your run, and at the moment it's kind of stakes free, as you said. Would you like to see something like that added to live, where you can just go in without getting any sort of additions in regards to, you can't get any components, legendary components or loot? It is just a case of you can go in there for fun if you want. I think Quissy, if you let us know how you feel on that one.
Yeah, for sure. If you're saying if they added something like that to the current state of retail WoW?
Oh, well, even when Shadowlands comes live. So
okay.
In regards to, at the moment we know that you can get legendary components and there's going to be free souls and currency tied to it. Would you like to see a version of it where there are no, you don't get anything from it, but you can just go in for fun if you want?
Absolutely. I mean, I know there's been a lot of discussion about like how should the devs limit it? Like, should you only be able to do it once a day, once a week? Is there going to be some kind of cap where you can no longer, expand throughout the levels and whatnot? Um, I think because it's been received so well in its very early stages, um, I think it would be a shame to have to restrict the players being able to actually experience the content. Um, Even if they limited the rewards, like right now we're just playing the alpha, right, and there aren't really any rewards, and we're still having fun with it. People are still playing for hours and hours on end. So I think that would be really cool to see if they just left it in, without any, you know,
Yeah.
even without an incentive, just something fun to do.
Without any restrictions, without anything stopping you from going in. I know you've been fairly vocal about this one, Farseer. You have really, you've been looking forward to Torghast for a long time since they announced it. Is it all it lived up to for yourself, or do you feel as though there still needs to be a couple of additions made, obviously aware that it's still very, very early in the alpha?
In its current state, I am very happy with it. Ever since they announced Shadowlands at BlizzCon, I believe it was at BlizzCon, it was basically just been my focus, like, on it. Whenever they mentioned Torghast the Tower of the Damned, the first thing that jumped to mind is like a ShieldWalled says, Slay the Spire, roguelike. Like, that is like my kind of thing. So I was like, from BlizzCon, I've been praying, I'll be like, please be good and please don't mess it up. And so far, yeah, since the alpha's come out and since it's shown off what it actually is, yeah, no, I am really, really happy with where it is right now. Obviously, I can already see there being quite a few changes between now and release, because obviously you have legendary components and you have boss loot, depending on what happens. It's very, very loosely. The devs of I think it was the interview with Towley. They've discussed very loosely that there might be a soft timer that they might put on it and as well. I know that's like a talking point for later as well. But yeah, so there might be a lot of changes coming through, but as long as they keep it at its core, like what it is now, and as long as they don't restrict people doing it too much, because it is a really fun feature, I think it'll go pretty far. All content eventually will end up being a bit monotonous. It always does. After the 2-year expansion, you're like, okay, Torghast. But like it's basically how fun can you keep it for as long as you can run it, really.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there with the mention of the soft timer, and one of the things that a lot of people have really, really been thankful for is the fact that, unlike Islands, which were another really, really promising addition to BFA, that as BFA as a whole has kind of didn't deliver in any way, shape or form alongside Warfronts, I imagine that there's probably going to be a little bit of trepidation from a lot of people when they mention a soft timer. And for the interview, he mentions that they don't want people just sat there waiting for Bloodlust and all their cooldowns to come off between each pull, because it's just going to end up being, that's not exactly how it's designed. How would you want to see a soft timer implemented? I'll kind of open the floor to this one, but if you were to introduce a soft timer to Torghast, maybe at some of the higher levels, how would you implement that? Would you have it as an actual physical timer, or would you more relate it to rewards that you gain from that certain level?
Interesting to think about.
I think a timer for those who want to have a bit of a challenge is interesting. Having in as default, I'm not quite sure, but those who want to go, all right, I'm going to race you, because right now, currently, obviously, we're having a little bit of an internal race in Torghast, and to have a timer slapped on it and go, okay, who can get the highest within this amount of time, sort of thing. It would be okay, but I mean, you can already do that yourself. You can already use the in-game timer for that and what have you. So it doesn't need to be a whole feature implemented. So I sort of get the soft timer in a way. They don't want people, like you said, doing bloodlust between pulls and whatever. But at the same time, if people want to play it that way, then let them play it that way, I suppose, rather than just forcing them to go through it at a certain pace. if you give people the content, let them do it how they want to do it, I think is really the way they should move forward with.
I agree.
Yeah, I think with, the idea of having like a timer, it's kind of, I don't know. Torghast is about exploration, right? It's about making choices, and so putting a lot of time pressure on that feels maybe not great. Although you also want to, like you kind of alluded to, you want to discourage people from spending 11 minutes per floor so that they can wait for all of their cooldowns for the big nasty at the end. Like that's also not fun, and you're sort of opening a window for people to play in a degenerate style that they're going to complain about, because it's like, oh well, why can't my cooldowns just reset every floor or something? It's like the cooldowns exist in the structure that they do to add texture and decision making to gameplay. So I think maybe having a thing like, having some kind of incentive for if you beat some kind of timer, then you get extra stuff, or you get, maybe there's some achievement or feat of strength tied to a particular timer idea. But I think letting people play the mode is going to be really important. I mean, this is going to be an interesting experiment in WoW, because WoW players are not wired for this kind of gameplay. You technically cannot master a mode like Torghast, because you never know what choices you're going to be presented with. So each run is going to be about making what you consider to be optimal choices based on what you're presented with. We're not used to that. We're used to there being a mathematical answer to the problem. You make the correct decision, and then you execute it well, and then you win, and you get the optimal rewards. That's not this mode. And I think that even from a game design standpoint, it'll be important, and I want to see Team 2 walk back from sort of this type of game design and let us break the rules. Let us have fun in here. Sure, we get a hard cap on the amount of legendary mats and covenant souls we can get out of the thing in a week, but if you want to run it 18 hours a day, and maybe there's pets and cosmetics and stuff you can pull out of there, then great. I mean, it makes sense to me to throttle things like horrific visions, the way the Mage Tower worked, etc., because they're static experiences, right? There's a little bit of variation in horrific visions, but it's the same experience over and over again. And honestly, just grinding out like a socket every week, I get a little bit sick of whatever one we're currently on. And also, they, let's be honest, they want you to stay engaged in the game. They want you to stay logging into it. They want you to stay subbed. So experiences that are static like this, it's in their best interest to draw them out over a period of time, so that you more slowly develop mastery over the system. Torghast is not this kind of system. You are not going to develop, permanent mastery over it. You might be really good at Torghast, and then you queue up a run, and you get a bunch of bad choices. You try to do your best, and you just crap out, and the run ends early. That's still going to happen to even the most seasoned Torghast players, and that's what's really exciting about it to me, is that that kind of texture that's created by these types of decisions that you're presented with. And it's going to be a real interesting experiment to see that unleashed on the player base, broadly, and to see what Team 2 really does with the way people are interacting with it.
Yeah, it's. I think the one thing that I've noticed is this is very much not a World of Warcraft sort of implementation of a feature. This is very, very outside of what they've done before. And then to try and almost squeeze it into this World of Warcraft template of you have X amount of runs and you can only get X amount of things from it, and that's all you're allowed to do, seems slightly odd, and almost as if they're penning themselves onto a decision that isn't realistically going to be very, very popular moving forward, if they do decide to take that decision. So I suppose the question then remains is, are we, with Torghast, now going to see a slightly different view on World of Warcraft? I know, Quissy, you've been obviously playing a lot of Classic recently, and Classic has 100%, I think, influenced a lot of the stuff we see in Shadowlands. We've got the level squish, we've got, the particular enchants, we've got weapon oil, we've got sharpening stones, right. And a lot of the questing feels almost classic in its, like a classic updated version of the questing zones in, obviously, original Classic WoW. Do you think that this Torghast sim shows a change in the way that they're going to implement features into WoW going forward?
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've even just reading, comments online and chatting with a bunch of people, I've seen a lot of people say like Diablo influence, even Binding of Isaac. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that game, but the entire RNG element of it is, I think, something that's really unique and special and different to a lot of things. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head actually that is similar to the Tower of Torghast in historically throughout World of Warcraft. And I think that's a huge selling point. There's just the randomness of it and how you'll have a different experience every single time. I also like that from like even like a guide writing standpoint, or like people who maybe make like video walkthroughs of something. You can't really make a video walkthrough per se of the tower. You could, give advice and tips and tricks on how to, do your best, I guess, on each level, but you can't really say, okay, go forward and then turn left and then you'll find a chest over there. Like I love that element of it, about how it's just different every time.
Yeah, it's probably definitely it's one of the, I think one of the big things is, you, like you said, you can't really write guides about it. You can give people ideas. You can say, oh well, if you get this power, then you can make this build. And I think we are going to see, instead of guides around Torghast, maybe guides around various different builds that people can do, such as people that do like the Mage Blink build, where you can blink through more rats and kill them instantly, as well as leave behind a mirror image and all that, all that jazz with various different characters. We haven't even seen the majority of classes yet as well, so we don't know quite how ridiculous the anima powers are going to be. Speaking of, we know that they're going to possibly reduce the amount of anima powers you can get, because let's be honest, Torghast is fun. It does kind of get slightly ridiculous towards the end of a run when you've got about 50 anima powers and you're just blowing stuff up without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think they've spoken about reducing it down to about 3 anima powers per level-ish. Again, very, very early this is from Towley's interview as well. Do you think that they should reduce the anima powers slightly? Do you think it starts to get a little bit ridiculous towards the end? Or would you kind of want to see the higher you get, the more ridiculous it gets?
I do think they need to dial it back a bit from, obviously we need to test it right now, right? So they need to crank everything up. You need to make a lot of choices. We need to get to see all the powers. So it does feel like, some floors you get 4 or 5 powers on a floor, maybe more if you hit a vendor, or, in between 2 floors, you could get like 7 or 8 powers sometimes. And that does feel like a lot, because it does start to trivialize stuff. It starts to, you kind of surpass the floor scaling as you get so powerful. Also, it kind of makes each individual choice less impactful, because it's like, well, I know I'm going to get 6 choices on this floor, so let me just take whatever here and move on to the next one. So I can kind of see the logic in having it a little bit overtuned right now, just so everybody can start trying the different powers, comparing them against each other, trying different synergies, and then dialing it back a bit as we move into like a more feature complete version of the test and then onto the live game.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. And of course, yeah, they're just throwing them at us right now just so we can test them all, as ShieldWalled says. So, yeah, what I'd like to see is, about 3 a floor at the moment sounds about right. Obviously, there may be tweaks here and there, maybe one less, one extra, depending on what's happening. But what I would prefer to see, rather than just, being completely overpowered and just like decimating every floor like it's nothing, because then again, it's fun for a little bit, but it's kind of like, people who then make a WoW private server, give themselves Sulfuras Hand of Ragnar or Spawn Rag and just kill him or whatever. The power's fun for about 5 minutes of being godlike, and then it becomes boring very quickly. And I could feel like that would be Torghast if you basically obtain that power every time. You'd be like, okay, now I can kill everything again. Woo. That's not where the fun comes from. It is fun for a little bit, but that's not where it comes from. I did see a really good moment, actually, which I think is a standout feature in Torghast the other day from Asmongold, of all people, actually. He was doing a heroic run, and on the next one, he would not be able to get past these mobs. Like, he had about 3 elite mobs that he definitely knew he could not get past. And he had this anima power dropped, and he literally sat there and prayed for something good that would help him. And it was the like 1 minute or 30 seconds of immunity anima power, which I never thought about in my head when we ran it. that it's just anything of it's just a bit of a useful invulnerability thing. And I thought, in that one situation where them 3 mobs would absolutely kill you, that's the most useful thing in the world. And I thought that actually is really cool and really fun. I was like, I've now found a new place where that specific anima power belongs and how useful it is. And I think that sort of thing moving forward through the tower, like hoping that you'll get that like perfect one for that situation, is like holds a lot more fun rather than just being godlike and just like strolling through. So yeah, definitely the way forward is to obviously reduce it a bit and then see what you get in the pot.
That's very true, and I think, you know, people often mention the fact that you don't know quite what you're going to get with the anima powers. Sometimes, at the moment, we know we've got the easy, normal, heroic. We know that those are alpha only and for testing, and in the next couple of weeks it is going to change to how it should work on live, which is you start at level 1 and you just climb. I think one thing that I've thought of whilst playing heroic is there does seem to almost be a case of, if you're starting a run, or say for example you get to, you know, you're starting a heroic run and you just turn around and you don't get the right anima power and the starting zone's really pretty terrible for you, the only option you realistically have is back out, start again. Do you think there should be some form of protection against people doing that, rather than just, you know, going in, I didn't get the perfect anima power, going out? Do you think there should be some, not necessarily similar to the deserter debuff where you've got 30 minutes or 15 minutes, I think it is at the moment, but should there be some sort of timer where it's like, okay, you've just gone in recently, let's give it 10 minutes and then you can go back in, to stop people from just in, out, waiting to get that perfect run for themselves?
Doesn't Slay the Spire has something similar to that, right? There's like a relic that you pick at the beginning, which is this passive buff that you have all the time, and if you quit a run early or something, then your next run you don't get to pick a relic. So maybe just crib something like that, you know, have some kind of interesting choice you can make at the start that's a nice power that you'll carry all the way through, and then if you exit a run, you know, manually or under a certain timer, then the next time you start one, you don't get that kind of baseline relic power, for lack of a better term. Like, I think something like that could work. Yeah, restricting access to the mode, I just don't like anything that would, you know, impose some kind of restrictions on access to the mode. But I do think it should encourage you to like engage with it and do your best and try to feel rewarded, even if you don't get that dream power, that dream combo right off the bat. I think it's important to influence people to complete their run. Like, the fun lies within taking your run and your build and your decision making to the farthest limit you can get within that run, not just fishing for the correct combo and then blowing through.
Yeah, that's kind of like to bounce off what you were saying about waiting for cooldowns, right? That kind of closes off that decision making process of how you should utilize your rotations and your cooldowns and all that. So yeah, something like it's all about like cheesing the tower in a way, cheesing your cooldowns, cheesing the entry to the tower, cheesing, you know, getting the perfect anima, you know, abilities and whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of like they have to think about a way to restrict that in a way. Do you think there's going to be some kind of like entry fee to get into the tower, like some kind of currency that you spend?
That is one thing that they did mention in the Towley interview, is having a currency that you could farm in the maw.
Yeah.
The problems with that are twofold. Is number one, it depends on how much currency there is, because if it's too easy to get, it's you know, you can blast through it and then you're done for the week and you only have to do it once. I think the second thing is the actual area where the maw is, you can only access it for a certain amount of time per day, because the jailer's constantly looking at you, and when you get to a certain point he'll spawn, you know, ads against you and reduce your stats, and at that point you're not going to be able to get much farming done. I do think adding currency would potentially be helpful to a degree. It's a very, very fine line between making it almost too open to everybody and then also making it so it feels obnoxious trying to get entry into Torghast. And like I said earlier, it seems very, very odd that they're trying to almost bolt-on World of Warcraft sort of features to a feature that doesn't, has no other place in World of Warcraft. They haven't done anything like it since. I mean, islands were always open. You could do as many islands as you wanted. Torghast isn't an island, but it's the same sort of premise. It's almost a constantly, infinitely repeatable piece of content. It's a very, very tough thing for them, I think, to balance Torghast with also dropping loot that can help you for legendaries and your covenants, but also a feature that is so fun that people just want to do it constantly. I think it's a very, very, very difficult act. I think they could almost have two different types. One which is you can go in for free and you can do whatever you want, but you don't get any loot from it. And then the version that is you get loot from it, but you have to have some form of currency to get into it to be able to do that. I think that seems like quite a good middle ground between the two. I don't know if anyone agrees with that one or if they'd rather...
I have a bit of an idea as you were speaking. Like, maybe keep Torghast open and free for anyone to do, but maybe there is something, maybe not a currency farm, but maybe there is something to be given in the way of doing like the hard mode or the infinite mode to get like higher rewards and what have you. So you have access to the tower, but in order to gain access to the higher part of the tower, you might have had to gather something in order to unlock it or whatever, to do the harder mode or something. Maybe that's a compromise, but you're very right, where it's a very difficult decision for Blizzard to balance this. I don't envy them having to just figure out where the balance lies in this whole sort of thing, because it might be one of these situations of no matter what they do, someone's going to be unhappy.
Oh yeah. I agree with you. Like maybe like the lower levels, they could probably have unlimited access, right? But maybe if you get to the higher levels, heroic mode, maybe there should be more restrictions to make it more special, I guess, to obtain that access. Even as we were talking about earlier with time limits, maybe you don't see a time limit until you get to those higher levels.
Possibly. I think it was, I think you mentioned earlier, ShieldWalled, where it was a case of if someone can cheese something in regards to just waiting for their cooldowns, they will do that, and then they will complain as well because they've somehow been forced to do that. It does seem as though that is kind of where this could go in regards to people turning around saying, oh, I want to have some form of control over how often I can go into Torghast, and then they implement it and they go, oh my god, Blizz, why you stopped me from going into Torghast? And you're sat there going, well, which one do you want?
Yeah, I like the randomness too, is that there's lack of expectation because you don't know what to expect when you go in. And I think when players expect too much, when something deviates from that expectation, that's when people tend to get upset as well.
Yeah, well, very true. I think a lot of the feedback that I've heard from, a lot of people who've been streaming it, even people that aren't streamers that have managed to get into the alpha, is regardless of what rewards they get, they just want to play Torghast. That's all they want to do because it is such a fun mode to do. And I think if Blizzard don't implement something where you can have like almost an endless amount of runs in Torghast if you want, I feel as though they'd be missing something. They'd almost be cutting their nose off to spite their face in a way. So having, I think having options open is the best thing for Torghast. Now, we know we've got 4 classes that we can currently test. What I want to know from you guys is, and we'll start with ShieldWalled and we'll go round, what do you guys want to see next in regards to class testing? Is there a specific class that you just really want to get your hands on in Torghast to see what it can do?
Well, I mean, I've been a Warrior main for 15 and a half years, so I mean, Warrior's the easy answer, but I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball here because what I really want to see for testing purposes is Prot Paladin, and what kind of weird stuff can you put on Avenger's Shield to just go nuts in Torghast, because that seems like Avenger's Shield, I think, is the most fun spell in the game. And if we can stack a bunch of crazy functionality and power on that, I think that could be really fun. I mean, obviously, once Warrior gets added, I'm just going to be spamming that in the test as much as I can play it. But in terms of what I'm most curious about, I think it's Avengers Shield interactions in there, because that could be really awesome.
Yeah.
Avengers Shield bounce indefinitely.
Could you
Oh my
imagine
God.
the filth? You just let it go at the start of the run and it just dang, 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 all the way
Just
up.
sit and watch, just fold your arms and just watch it
Yeah.
unfold. It'd be great.
As a warrior main as well, I want to, for the past 15 and a half years, I just want to point out to you, infinite heroic leap. That's going to happen. That is going to happen, and it will be beautiful. Quissy, how about yourself?
It's funny because there's a vengeance power that is a speed boost after you land with Infernal Strike, which has just been a warrior talent for a few years now. It's like, oh, they finally made Infernal Strike feel better to use by just giving it a warrior talent.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's basically what they do with warriors. I just give the talents to everybody else. Quissy, how about yourself? Is there a specific class you're looking forward to?
Yeah, as a paladin main, I'm looking forward to paladin as well. Prot Pally in particular, that like the Avenger Shield. As soon as you that those words left your mouth, there's the possibilities, right? I'm trying to think of other classes. Like I'm really a paladin main. I'd like to see a boomkin though. See what kind of things boomkins could do in there.
Constant star surge. Just
literally pulls in the moon from outside.
Yeah.
Treants just running through Torghast, just all the little trees running everywhere.
Exactly. It could. I think Boomkin is one that they've made a lot of changes to Boomkin, and a lot of people are enjoying it. So it's gonna be fun, I think, seeing exactly what they can do in Torghast. It's gonna be a lot of fun seeing what they can do. And Farseer, I know obviously the two classes that you've played the most, Demon Hunter, Warlock, are already in this current test. But is there anything outside of that you want to see?
Well, as you and some people know, I'm basically moving to Shaman for Shadowlands. It's my first proper Shaman in 15, 14 years. For as long as I've been playing WoW, I've never really had a max level Shaman. So hey, here we go. So yeah, I want to see what Shamans can do. Right now, I already feel like Thor in Enhancement, just like striking everyone with lightning and just thunder. It's absolutely great. So that almost enhanced. Yeah, I want to feel like Thor from the Endgame. I want to feel like that Thor. So give me that, and then we'll have a good time. Essentially,
one of your anima powers is just equip Mjolnir, and you just that's it. You just start swinging it. That would, I
love it.
There's a lot. Seeing what they've done with the anima powers, with the classes that we have at the moment, for example, Blinking leaves behind a mirror image, and the fact that you can have some ridiculous Demon Hunter ones. I think the one that I was playing Havoc, and it was the anima power where killing a Morat whilst in Metamorphosis adds 6 seconds to the transformation. I think I managed to get my Metamorphosis up to around about the 6-minute mark. Which, again, it was one of those where I was like, okay, this is cool, but there's absolutely no challenge left now.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Which
literally
was
Illidan.
Yeah, it was fun, but again, at what point does fun become trivial? I think that's one of the main things that that Torghast is kind of really needs to balance well. Moving on, I think we'll move on from Torghast. One final question before we do, though, is with Torghast being implemented as an end of the leveling feature, we know that there's going to be more expansions after Shadowlands. Do you feel as though Torghast should either remain as Torghast and we can access it at the end of the next expansion as kind of like a continuous thing that we have, rather than what we've had previously, sort of at the end of Warlords of Draenor, where your garrison just disappeared and you never had to visit it again? Same with your Order Hall in Legion, it's just disappeared and you never have to visit it again. Do you feel as though it should stay, or should Blizzard take this and then almost run with it in the next expansion and do something similar, so we have this option to do another, if it's successful, that is? Should there be another option in future expansions to do something like this?
Yeah, if it's super successful, why not? And I like seeing continuity, but like in each expansion. So somebody like Hemet Nezingwari, right? You see him in every expansion. So if the tower, is successful as as we are all excited for it to be, I'd love to see a different form of it, maybe in a new expansion, like something like the Torghast Tower, but not exactly the Torghast Tower. But maybe still have some merit for if you're leveling. Maybe you could level in it if you're leveling alts or something. There's some kind of incentive so that it doesn't completely become what's the word, obsolete. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my gut punch reaction to it from playing it when it opened for testing was they're gonna have to do one of these every expansion, which is when Legion came out and I saw how the world quest system clicked into the way all of the other content worked and how Mythic Plus dungeons were, I was like, well, this is just WoW now. We just need these forever. And I felt the same way about my initial couple Torghast runs. Now, would they have to build one from the ground up every single time out? Maybe not. I mean, you could see the potential to like reskin some of it, add some new tile sets, add some new creatures. Obviously, every expansion, they do all the class changes, so you have an opportunity for a lot of different anima powers. I think it could be a thing that they could just add modules to every time out and keep it fun and interesting, even without a huge reward structure built around it. It's so weird to have a piece of content in WoW that's just legitimately fun to play moment to moment without any expectation that there's going to be some payoff at the end. We're not used to that. MMORPGs are about the carrot at the end of the stick ultimately. And when it comes to the gameplay, there's the social element on top of it and sort of the fun that we create around the game. But the game structure itself is very much repeat this activity until you receive the reward that you want so that you can repeat the activity more efficiently. Torghast doesn't feel like that. And I hope that they keep it feeling that way. I hope that they keep this in mind when they figure out how we're going to access it, and that we see either this mode expanded on into the future or some facsimile of it each time out, because it's amazing to have this avenue for single player play or small group role agnostic group play in WoW. I never thought we'd see the day a couple years ago.
Yes, that's very, very true. It does feel as though, I think we last time we had something close to this hinted at for group agnostic sort of content was scenarios all the way back in Mists of Pandaria, which were promising and people enjoyed, and then they just, instead of introducing them as like almost a separate thing from dungeons, so you could have, they're an alternative to dungeons, they suddenly became a case of, okay, well, we'll just add this into the questing. And whilst they are fun, I feel as though it was a missed opportunity for them to do more with them back in Mists, and hopefully we don't end up with the same thing here in Torghast. Now, moving on from Torghast, the other thing that was added in that has, I think it has been a very much something that has divided the community somewhat. Some people seem to really like it, some people are not so much, which is obviously the new character customization UI, which myself personally, I think it looks extremely clean. I love the look of it and modern, and it's also, for me, it kind of makes it a little bit more accessible. It's a little bit easier to see exactly what is going on with the character customization. When you first saw it, what were your initial reactions?
I got a kick out of it because I thought it looked like a modern game, and I'm like, wow, Warcraft character creation looks like a modern game. That's weird. It's obvious that they're putting a lot of resources into making the game more friendly to a new player, a returning player after a long absence. With Exile's Reach and all this other stuff, like they're making a big investment in how you meet the game up front. It's so early. That my first impression was, this is going in a cool direction. This is super early. So, obviously they want to add a lot more customization options into the mix so that you can add a little bit more of your flavor, your personality into your tunes, which is awesome. And I think that they're building the foundation to allow that to make sense when you play the game. But it's a little bit hard for me to assess when we're seeing like such an early look at it. Like, this is not what we're going to see when Shadowlands ships.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the first thing I thought when I saw it was, look at all the space. There is so much space on the screen, and I'm like, there's going to be something here. Like, as clean as it looks, it is going to be filled with something like description boxes or extra allied races for the future, or something or other. But as it currently stands, yep, I'm with ShieldWalled. Loving the direction it's going. It's looking really nice, very clean. And yeah, it's definitely a welcome update. And quite, not surprising, but, not, I can't really think of the word right now, but it's welcomed, I suppose, to see Blizzard like putting in this effort of saying, oh, people coming back to WoW, or maybe getting, new people in, because I think it's been said by a few people now that the majority of people that play WoW have been playing WoW for a long time, and I don't think there's like a flood of new people all still coming into WoW at this point, but they're still putting in effort to make a new starting experience, to update the character selection screen that everyone's known for years. So I love it. I like a new fresh update, and it's been, I think it was 10 years in Cataclysm since they updated it last. So yeah, definitely definitely time for it.
Long overdue. Yeah, even the character, like the sliders when you're customizing the character, that looks a lot more modern too. But yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. Everything just looks clean, updated, modern, like we said. And yeah, I'm not surprised to see a new character customization screen. I don't know if, like you said, some people may have been or were upset about it. Coming from playing Classic mostly, you're used to seeing that old school character customization screen, but then anytime I hop back into the current version of WoW or even the Shadowlands Alpha, I'm not surprised when I see like a big change like that, and I don't think people should be. Like we said, it seems like they are trying to make a positive effort towards modernizing the game and welcoming new players to the game as well. So
I think the first time I saw it, I hadn't actually seen it in the game, and I saw it as a screenshot, and I went, oh, that's a really nice concept piece that someone like. I thought it was like fan art. I was like, oh, this is really nice. I think Blizzard should implement this. And then it was like, no, this is the actual UI. I was like, oh, okay, this is a really nice direction. And I think, as Farseer said, there is 100% more room for allied races on that screen. There is definitely more room, and whether or not we get, I think there's been a lot of data mining. There's some people that said, oh, we've data mined potentially the fauna from the fawns from Ardenveld, and I think there was mention of like Tuskar on there. All I'm asking for, Swolkins. Blizz, please.
Yes.
Swolkins.
Well,
it's gonna happen.
It's got to.
Eventually.
It has
If they give us Volpera, they'll give us Swolkins.
We thought Tuskar were going to happen as well, but they didn't. Again, surprisingly, but let's hope Swolkins make it.
Fingers are crossed for that one. It definitely, I think the big thing is, it definitely feels as though Blizzard are trying to modernize the game, and it's always going to be a slight struggle because I think they have a lot of issues in regards to the engine. It's essentially the same engine they used all those years ago, which in part is just a completely hodgepodged version of the Warcraft 3 engine. Do you feel as though there's going to be a point where they have to sort of say, okay, if we want to make any more changes, such as, the character customizations and, the UIs, we're going to have to make a new engine, or at the very least move to an updated version of the engine?
I don't think so. I think that they've been able to add new functionality to the engine every time out. I mean, you can see it continue forward into Shadowlands. Obviously, like, we've all played the alpha. The stuff that isn't even finished yet looks amazing. There's ray tracing support. The engine was built to service the needs of the game, and it does that very well in most cases. There are some gameplay features and pie-in-the-sky stuff that ended up in the game that the engine doesn't support very well. But I kind of feel like the tools and the tech that supports the game is essentially the game, and I don't think they could move off of that easily. They'd have to shutter future development on WoW, essentially, and it would be a static thing. It would be in a holding pattern for 5 or 6 or 7 years until they got new tech built and got everything off the ground. So as much fun as it is to think about what WoW could potentially look like if it wasn't a game that began its life in 1999, I don't think there's any way to make that a reality without putting the live game on hold for years on end while they got something spun up in the background.
Yeah, that's probably, it's almost like a pipe dream of a lot of Warcraft fans. Like, World of Warcraft 2, when? But I think we're kind of stuck with it as it is because, like you said, putting the game on hold for that long just isn't going to work realistically. Unless they extend Torghast horrifically long. Who knows? I think so.
Just 5 years of Torghast.
5 years of Torghast. It's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be. I'm sure it'll go fine.
It's random. It's new content every time. So
It's true.
it is true. Coming to the end now. So one last question I want to put to all of you, and we'll start with yourself, Quissy. What do you want to see in the next build of the alpha? Is there a single thing you really want to get hold of, or is there a single thing that you think that is something I want to test? That is something I need to kind of see how it works.
I haven't been playing the alpha as extensively as I'm sure most people. Is there anything with Revendreth yet? Because that entire zone has
Not
really
as of
interested me.
Not
Okay,
yet,
just making sure. I didn't think so.
Soon, because Transylvania. I want to see
Exactly.
it. Oh.
Any like horror movie buff or anything, in that whole realm is super exciting. All the
Bloodborne vibes,
designs.
I get from it. Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Vibes.
It just everything to do with that zone I want to experience. So that's definitely what first comes to mind to me.
Yeah, they haven't officially opened it, but if you are able to use the Shaman's Farsight technique, you can get to it.
Don't give away the secrets, Kexman.
Maybe I will
Everyone
do that.
knows. Everyone knows. It is a very, very good. It looks incredible. It does. I think the one thing that they were just like, give me Dracula the Zone. That is what this zone is. It is Dracula the Zone.
And then Dracula the Raid.
Yeah, then Dracula the Raid, exactly. It's going to be great. Farseer, how about yourself? What's the next thing you want to see in the build for the next alpha version?
I'm eager for either Revendreth, as has already been said, because of all the reasons stated above, or Maldraxxus. I want to see what Maldraxxus is like open, because basically this is just I sort of see Maldraxxus in a way as a mirror of Icecrown, because it's pretty much, because from what I've seen of the undead army of the Necrolords, it's you can't help but just link it and connect it completely with the Scourge on Azeroth, and I want to know more. Like, I want to know more. Why is it so similar? Did the Lich King pull souls from them? Is that where the Scourge go when the damned die? Like, there's just so much about it that I want to know. I've always loved the aesthetic and the lore behind the undead and the Lich King himself in World of Warcraft. So because this sort of connects it in some sort of way, I just want to know more. So I want to see Maldraxxus, really.
That's fair enough. And ShieldWall, yourself.
Okay, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be in the next build, but the thing that I want to see the most at the moment is the Covenant system, and actually digging into how that works, seeing the soulbinds and the different powers that you can pick from, and how you power up your soulbinds, and how that whole ecosystem works, because that is going to be a huge part of what we're doing in Shadowlands on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis, and we need that system testable as early as possible. So that's what I want to test the most. You know, obviously, there's been some controversy around the active abilities and the balance around them and everything like that. And, how can we tie character power directly to cosmetic choices? And I think those people are missing the forest for the trees. The Covenant system is a lot bigger than a cosmetic armor set and an active ability. And it is one of the major things we'll be interacting with every day that we play Shadowlands. So that's the big thing on my list that I want to see and get a feel for, and see what kind of stuff they are baking into that system.
Yeah, I think that's probably quite on a lot of people's lists, is seeing how these final Covenant systems are going to work. It's a big part of Shadowlands, so it's not, unfair to say that let us get our hands on it early like Torghast, and we can iron out all the kinks so we don't end up with Azerite 2.0. Well,
please no.
That's the end of the show today. Thank you again for joining me here. It's been wonderful to talk all things Torghast. Obviously, myself and Farseer, you can see us every Friday at 7 PM GMT on You Think You Do, But You Don't. But where can they find you, ShieldWalled?
So the best place to find me around the interwebs, at ShieldWalled on Twitter and at twitch.tv/ShieldWalled. And there you can find stuff like The Starting Zone, which is my weekly WoW podcast with Spencer Downey, where we talk everything new and notable in all versions of WoW, live, classic, alpha testing now. So new episodes every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, over on twitch.tv/Spazbot Studios, and then wherever you can find your fine podcasts of choice. And I also want to plug a show that is on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I've been working on a show called Reforged Radio with my buddy Kyle Ferguson. It is a show all about Warcraft 3 gameplay and story and lore, and how all of these things have sort of wormed their way into World of Warcraft, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, all these other things, and just talking about the history of this game that we both love. And you can find that show at Kyle's website at kyleferguson.com, 2 S's in Ferguson, or anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Fantastic. And Quissy, where can everyone find you?
Well, you could find me on Twitch and Twitter at Quissy TV. I also make YouTube videos, just Quissy on YouTube, no TV. Mostly classic focused, but I have been dabbling with the Shadowlands Alpha, and I'm excited to see more content with that. I also have a podcast as well with my roommate Pasta, and it's called Warcraft Brew. We cover everything in the realm of Warcraft as well, from all the way from classic to Shadowlands and everything in between, even some Warcraft 3. And also I write guides on classic.wowhead.com. So anything from a dungeon guide to a world boss guide or profession guide, you may find one of my guides on there. And yeah, I think that covers all the bases.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thank you for joining me here. I will see you folks next time for episode 3 of the Shadowlands Alpha Round Table. My name has been Kexman, and I'll see you then.